to another edition of Ask Michael Eline. This is where I teach people the law in an unorthodox manner by using examples that we see in the news, case law briefs, but it's all about exposing the Leviathan and its instrumentalities and taking back your rights. Know the law and mean to keep it well. Come here to learn from an expert to know your right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Hey guys, so welcome back to another edition of Ask Michael Eline. I got BZ Watchdog in the house. What's going on, BZ?
Cold as hell. That's what I think.
All
I
right.
got the AC cranked down a little too much.
So I got some commenters in the sidebar. I want to thank everybody for showing up. Let's OTVO, thank you for coming. Jim Forbes, thanks for coming. Hit the like and subscribe button.
Wait,
Hit
hold
that
on.
like
Got the chili
button.
button.
Oh
Hit
yeah,
the
hell
like
yeah.
button.
Hit the like and subscribe button. Get the Team DLZ, yeah, Team DLZ shirts, and I get the indestructible trifolds over at Team DLZ, or go over talk to Here's the Deal. James Forbes, Audit US, Big Willie, yo, what's up, Big Willie?
Big Willie means big super chats.
Yeah, Big Chevy and Mikey B, thanks, man. Good day, American Patriots. Yes, indeed. So everybody, I do plan on seeing Chili again on Wednesday, so hopefully I'll be able to give you an update on what's going on with him and things that I'm allowed to discuss with you that aren't confidential. And then, so I didn't have a lot of time to prepare a lot of news source material. I'm working on one about the dumbing down of the legal education system, which has to do with what happened in Washington, where they're saying that they needed to lower the standards or eliminate the bar exam because they're saying that it discriminates against Black people and Hispanics. And so they just want to lower the standards in order to make it non-discriminatory. And then in California, they're going to do something similar where they make the bar exam unnecessary. So you can just study law for like one little thing and not take a bar exam. I'm going to get into that with you guys in another episode. It's very time consuming. I think it's going to lead to a lot of problems because you should have to pass a basic test and learn basic studying. It has nothing to do with rote memorization, the bar exam, and has everything to do with learning how to study and being disciplined. It has nothing to do with race or any of this nonsense. It's all just a bunch of garbage. Anyways, we'll get into that at another time. So I have this episode that I want to work on today called Fact Check. Do police have a duty to protect individuals? And I'm going to tell you right now, as a general rule, absolutely not. And, you know, I wanted to be in law enforcement after I got out of the Marines. And I know a lot of people wanted to be cops because of movies like 1 Adam 12 and all that stuff, or TV shows like 1 Adam 12. So I wrote this article a while ago and I figure out, you know, I didn't have time to do anything special today, but this is kind of special for you people who think that you know stuff and you really don't. So municipal police were designed, and I think first deployed, I believe, in New York or Massachusetts, and they're designed to protect the municipality. They're designed to protect the government. They are not designed to protect you. That's not their primary function, and you can't sue them if they don't. So, and there's usually no criminal liability either. And so let's just get into it really quick. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the limited exceptions where the police will have a duty to protect people. It's very limited. And I'm going to talk about the Second Amendment and why it's so important, and get into natural law a little bit. And I'm just going to, I have BZ here to ask questions and help me just field questions from the sidebar. I really don't have a lot of time this evening, guys. I'm pretty fried, but I want to get through this because I think it's really, really important. And I think it'll fill in a lot of missing holes in your understanding about the role of government in our lives and how it's just spiraled out of control, and how a lot of the things that are going on are definitely not something envisioned by our founders. So really quickly, no, generally the police do not have a duty to protect you. And you can look at the Castle Rock and DeShaney case, and you can look at some other ones we're going to talk about. Now, you probably can't sue the police for failing to protect you for a lot of reasons. And most police officers in the public do think that the thin blue line will stand faithfully between them and evildoers. But we know from the riots that, the Rodney King riots, that's not what happened. The LAPD just sat there and let rioters burn the city down. give Reginald Denny a brain injury. And the only people who were able to protect their property were well-armed Korean store owners. And by the way, most of the weapons those Koreans were using were banned by, I think, one of the California governors. They're all pretty much the same, under the Roberti Ruse, so-called Assault Rifle Act, or whatever they wanted to call it. But basically, anybody who had an AR-15 platform that had the stamp of a particular manufacturer on it, if they didn't register it as an assault weapon or a RAW, registered assault weapon, would be guilty of a felony. So that's all those weapons those store owners use to protect themselves are now illegal in California. So anyways, the principle is we Americans have no general civil right to sue the police for failure to provide protection. So if you think police have a duty to give you a police report, no, wrong. Can't sue them. You can make a personnel complaint. And that's kind of why it's kind of nice to have Basil here. So Basil, how does that working out for you guys, cop watchers and auditors with the police personnel?
Well, I was talking to Texas Gal Audits on the phone earlier today, and I said, screw internal affairs. I'm just going to be my own external affairs and investigate. But I think by doing public information requests, putting the information out, get the video around, and put some pressure on calling, emailing, and redressing your government at the police department with a supervisor or chief of police or whoever you can get a hold of and talk their ear off about how you feel about it. I think it puts a lot of pressure on them, but it all starts with the FOIAs and a public information request. And without that info, you can't air out their laundry.
Okay. So the answer is these internal affairs and personnel complaints don't really do a whole heck of a lot.
Negative.
And you probably can't sue.
That's correct.
So if the police if the police treat you wrong. Now, if the police fail to protect people, well, that's a different story. Now, we saw that, we've seen that, I think the Denver case where the cop, right, where the cop didn't do anything, coward, right? I mean, back in the old days, he would have just been taken out by the mob, tarred and feathered, thrown off a cliff. But nowadays, everybody's like, race to the bottom. Everyone gets a trophy. It's just, anyways, I don't want to get too far off base here. But in the Castle Rock case, Jessica Gonzalez sued for the death of her 3 daughters because her murderous father, and the police knew he was murderous, ended up running off with, I think, her girls and killed them. And Justice Scalia basically restated, again, ancient common law. Remember, our laws are based on English common law, except we're abrogated by basically the Bill of Rights because we're bound by the chains of the Constitution. So whereas England might have a debtor's prison, we wouldn't. We have an 8th Amendment. We have rules that allow bankruptcy and, no cruel and unusual punishment. Anyways, ancient common law, DeShaney versus Winnebago County of Social Services. He's basically restating in this case an old established principle that it is a well-established principle. Tradition of police discretion has long coexisted with apparently mandatory arrest statutes. And this had to do with, did the police have a mandatory duty to arrest this crazy murderous father? And no, the police have discretion, just like they don't have a duty to write you a ticket, guys. That's the point I'm trying to make. That's what makes me angry is they never seem to exercise their discretion when it comes to raising money for the government, but they always seem to exercise their discretion more and more nowadays, make sure they make it home safe when it comes to helping their fellow citizens. It's all about making it home safe. And that's the complaint that I hear from a lot of mothers who have lost kids. And that's what we saw happen recently with that woman in Texas. Remember that case in Texas, the one where they handcuffed her. I think she escaped her handcuffs or got out. Maybe they Uvalde. She hops the fence, rescues her daughters, and then the Child Protective Services kidnaps her children from her. Says she's unfit. She rescued her children. Are you freaking kidding me? Anyways, so in the DeShaney case, a 4-year-old boy had been continuously abused by his father, and the County Department of Social Services, they knew about it, but neglected to take the child into protective custody. The boy's mother sued because the child was made into a vegetable, right? Because the father was a piece of garbage.
Let me ask you this. So say, because we're going to how they're not obligated to helping or to protecting us per se.
Yeah.
So let me just give you a scenario and see, because you're licensed in Texas, so this I'll make this pertain to Texas so it's easier for you. So you're in Texas, you get a phone call that boyfriend is beating up girlfriend, girlfriend's beaten to pulp in her face, and then the boyfriend, whether he tries to turn it around on her and say she's crazy or whatnot, but even though the girlfriend has evidence on her phone of being beaten for like 3 hours, pretty much, they don't take him to jail. They don't take anybody to jail. Is that are they not obligated to protect that assault victim? I mean, even though there was a crime involved.
Well, so the police have no duty, no general duty to protect you. Now, if the police showed up and they were standing,
Say six cops deep with only one victim, one suspect.
Let's say the police are at your ex-girlfriend's house, right? And they're asking you questions standing at your front door. And then you're her crazy ex-boyfriend and you show up with an AR and you're walking across and you're trying to shoot her and they know you're trying to shoot her and they all run and duck. Well, that would be an exception where she was in imminent danger, probably, where they would have a duty to try to defend her because they were in between her and the assailant. That's a very limited time they would have to. If the police know that there's someone who's a crazy person and they let him go and he's released a couple hours later, or he just goes away and comes back, you can't sue the cops for that.
Okay.
It would be almost impossible to go after the police based upon well-established case law. In this other case, to Shaney, the court found that the government workers had zero duty to protect the 4-year-old, even though they knew that there was violence and dangerous stuff. Right. The only people who get in trouble are the parents. Government employees always get away with everything, but parents and regular taxpayers, they don't. I mean, the government can use defamation. They can poison government agents against us. They can put propaganda throughout all these federal agencies to make people who support the First Amendment look like they're crazy, which would be defamation in any other case. But for them, they can rely on all these different immunities. Same thing when they beat the hell out of people or kill them, they can rely on qualified immunity. And a lot of people think that's unfair. And so I'm here to explain, what the law says so you can understand why I think it's unfair. So you don't just think I'm anti this or anti that. I'm pro-American, and I want you to understand natural law and natural rights and why you should not rely on government. The whole point of our government was to bind government employees by the chains of the Constitution and leave us the heck alone. That was the difference. So anyways, these cases establish very well that the police have generally no duty to protect you unless it's a very limited circumstance. And of course, then I ask, why is the government trying to make guns illegal for private citizens if they refuse to protect me? Well, that's the whole point, isn't it, guys? It's like a false religion almost when you plead ignorant philosophical ideas like, let's take away your ability to defend yourself, and let's also take away this imaginary thing that's not even protecting you to begin with. The point that I'm trying to make, guys, is these guys don't have a duty to protect you to begin with. They just don't. And we see that now when they're showing up, 20 minutes, 30 minutes now to get to a call, and everybody has to say it's like a life and death to get cops to show up. You heard that one, Basil? Were there, right? I mean, is that happening in Texas?
That happens everywhere, man. I don't care what state you're in. It happens in that state.
Yeah. Anybody in the sidebar?
Now, let me give you guys an example. So I did a ride along. I think it was 2006. It was 2005 or 2006. I did a ride along with a young officer who was probably about 23 years old. Probably got on the department because his daddy was a sergeant back then. But we were like on one area command, which covers maybe about 3 or 4 miles, okay, in length. This guy heard that there was a suspect who ran and maybe armed. And the next thing you know, we're doing 100+ miles an hour down city streets, almost literally running red lights to go 5 miles to get there in like 2 minutes. And I've never gripped an oh shit handle more in my life. and I could have sworn they crapped my pants maybe like a little bit, but yes, they will run code to hell, not just get to backing up an officer, but if they think they can get a chance to get a couple of licks on the beatdown happens, they're throwing code 3 and going.
Gotcha.
So so they're safety. I'm gonna do the air quotes. Safety,
yeah,
is definitely more important than you and I.
Well, so the idea behind the police duty to protect people is basically that municipal corporations are just that. They're corporations and they're chartered from the county or the state. And
I also forgot to mention they made me sign a waiver stating that cop was not responsible for me.
Right. And so I just want to kind of get into the history a little bit. So it comes from this English common law principle that was carried over into American common law. I know Chile says that the American police were designed to catch slaves. I kind of disagree with that. I know that there were municipal type police used to try and go after slaves, but there was a well-established presence of basically copycats of the British bobbies in some of the northeastern states well before they were ever deployed in the Deep South. And I actually have written articles about that. I have several books that I'm working on right now that will be available for you guys soon on those topics. But on the other hand, the American Bar Association was almost exclusively Ku Klux Klan and very racist organization, and many law schools were created. The point of having a lot of law schools was to prevent blacks from being able to become lawyers. So I find it kind of ironic that now modernly the ABA is trying to do away with the bar exam to allegedly help people of color become quasi lawyers, and by telling them that they're not intelligent enough apparently to take the bar exam, which really to me is a slap in the face to all humans. You should never treat anybody like they're any different than anyone else. Everybody has the ability to do it and pass. I did it without any undergrad and barely making it out of high school. So don't tell me it can't be done. Okay, so an armed society is a polite society when police fail to protect you. And we've seen that in certain cities. You go to like Willis, Texas, or you go to certain parts of Nevada, everybody open carries, or a lot of people do. And you just don't see people mad dogging each other or driving like idiots. It's understood that we're all just going to regulate ourselves. And that's the whole point that's what well-regulated meant under the Second Amendment. Now, well-regulated just means well-disciplined and good order. That's all that meant. What's that?
It's like the old cowboy days with one marshal in town. The marshal was just there to put you in the jail for the night and let you out in the morning. But outside of that, everybody regulated themselves in them cowboy towns.
Yeah, and that's right, man. And the problem with multiculturalism and flooding your country with people who might be hostile to you and having these open borders is that it destroys our national integrity. It destroys basically the whole organic system of our government, because the idea is you want to be able to invite qualified people into your country who are going to contribute. Someone with an engineering degree that, we need help, in our country. Somebody's going to contribute, not a bunch of illegals who come up here for free phones, free hotels, commit a bunch of crimes. And basically we're all being replaced by AI anyways. Like, how are these guys going to get jobs when the jobs they would get, like burger flipper or cashier, right? They're all being replaced with robots by the AI. They're just going to be basically census redistricting agents, changing the electoral college. And that's basically the only reason they're coming here. And it takes away from our ability to have a national identity and protect ourselves as Americans. They've never served in the military for our country. They don't know what it means to be an American. They've never been taught about the famous battles against Britain or the powder houses or why we had a revolution. They don't care. All they care about is their hotel and their free phone. That's why they were invited up here by nonprofits for that purpose. And so that's the point that I was trying to make, guys, is that we have a two-tier war against us here. We have the fact that police are not going to protect us. They have no duty to. And we have the government trying to disarm us simultaneously. And so since your self-defense rights are questionable, why don't you have a general right to be affirmatively protected by law enforcement? And obviously this is a question I'm hoping you can answer for me, or maybe, somebody in the government can. And then I just go into some examples about how, Rittenhouse was being chased and being hit with the skateboard and shot at, and he finally turns around and defends himself, and he gets falsely charged by these lunatic district attorneys. And look what they did to him. And then I get into, when do the police have a duty to protect you? Okay, so there's basically the late, great Johnny Cochran, who I actually met, really cool guy. He lost an argument in Castle Rock, in 1996, and then once again the Supreme Court reaffirmed in its 2005 decision in the Castle Rock v. Gonzalez case, and they reminded us that the Supreme Court only has to protect you in cases of imminent danger, typically when they place you in imminent danger, like when they accept a duty to do something. So if the police are protecting your baby, but then they push out and they leave your baby, on the road and keep running, well, then they could probably be jailed or sued because they accepted a duty. And that also applies to someone who is in jail. So when the police jail someone, they have a duty not to make their handcuffs too tight. They have a duty to make sure they get their medicine when they're in jail. They have a duty to not beat the shit out of them. But they don't have a duty basically to protect people in general population. That's a problem, right, guys? I mean, think about that, how ridiculous that is. They put you in a dungeon with a bunch of lunatics. I see these people talking about Chile like, oh, it's no big deal. It's just county. Dude, county jail is worse than state prison in many situations. And in this case, they don't have any kind of segregation. They have mentally ill lunatics in cells with people who didn't do anything really wrong that's violent, and then violent people. And they're mixing them all together. It's unbelievable. I mean, people are getting their teeth knocked in. People get killed all the time. It happens. So you people are saying it's not a dungeon. You guys are smoking crack, in my opinion. Now, they have it. So if they accept a duty, they've got to take it. All right. But it's limited in cases of prison. And then when the police deny you protection based on your race or some other civil rights violation. Okay. So what does that mean? So what happened is I believe it was Johnny Cochran. I believe he represented Reginald Denny, and Reginald Denny sued, I think it was the city of Los Angeles, for violating equal protection because the police only sent protection into the rich white neighborhoods, according to Johnny, and the crummy minority neighborhoods, the police cordoned off and didn't send anybody into. And that's where Reginald Denny got beamed by that. Those dudes were throwing bricks at his head. And for any of you who don't know about the Rodney King riots, just Google Reginald, Reginald, Denny, Denny, I think, or EY, and just type in brick braining, because they brained him with bricks. They literally exploded bricks on his head and destroyed his brain. And so I think it was Cochran who sued the police and said the police denied the black areas equal protection, and therefore Denny should be covered. And I think that the courts ruled that, well, really, in this case, there might have been a duty because Johnny was smart, but I think the ruling was, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, put it in the comments if I'm wrong, that Denny wasn't the object of the people being protected. He wasn't in the class of people being protected. He was just somebody driving through in a truck. But
yeah,
if it had been a resident,
I think he was a dump truck driver.
If it had been a neighbor or resident, probably it would have been different. So let me just really quick, I'll get through this, guys. I don't want to bore you. So otherwise, police agencies are not obligated to protect citizens. And Castle Rock was just one big string of cases stemming from the original Watts riots and the later Rodney King riots throughout Los Angeles that spilled over nationwide. And those King riots began in 1992. And soon after, a Simi Valley jury acquitted Rodney King's, the cops that beat the crap out of.
I think one of them was Mark Furman too. I think
Rodney King. I don't know. Was it? I thought he was the OJ guy.
He was, but he was also known as he was known as a racist like cop. That's why he was involved in O.J. Simpson's trial, and then I think he was involved in Rodney King's in either the beatdown or something to do with the trial or something. He did something. But
yeah,
I'll look that up.
All right. So basically, the federal appeals court rejected Reginald Denny's claim that racist police deliberately withdrew where he was beaten, and the Ninth Circuit upheld the case, and the $40 million lawsuit was thrown out. By the way, Johnny Cochran was a really cool dude. I think he died of brain cancer. He signed my remedies book, my In a Nutshell remedies book. I still have that with the picture of me holding it up where he signed it. It was pretty cool. It was at LA Airport, LAX. Really cool experience, becoming a lawyer with no law degree and working crazy blue collar jobs and being able to go on that experience and ending up clerking for an appellate justice is pretty awesome. It's a pretty amazing experience. Okay, so soon, basically in a nutshell, here's how this worked. The professional full-time police services started in 1838 in Boston, and then soon after, New York started their civilian police forces in 1844. And then later, the Philadelphia police set up their police in 1854. Now, I know that there were different types they weren't really police, but they were like bounty hunters were used in the Deep South, but they were not municipal police like this. These were municipal police that were chartered by municipal corporations to patrol the cities. And this is because cities got so large that the regular sheriff was no longer able to conduct regular policing duties. Remember, our founders intended that we policed ourselves. The idea is that we were all well regulated. A lot of the people were Christians. They went to church on Sunday. They were not really violent. Everybody was armed. It was just a different kind of a situation. People had a lot more respect for each other. People would even have those duels if they got out of line. So people tried to be in line more, in my opinion. Now, that was when our first tax-funded municipal corporations organized full-time police, 1838. Police are basically magistrates similar to a judge. This is my opinion, having researched this. You may have a different opinion, and that's fine. But they have the same power as a roadside magistrate. They have the power to hold you to answer and get you to answer the charges, and then either take you into custody, summons you, or release you. The only thing that they have to make sure they do is get you before a judicial magistrate within 3 days, unless, of course, it's the weekend. Then you got to wait till Monday. So that's why bail bonds people love arrests on Friday, because they know they're going to make more money, because nobody wants to be in jail over the weekend. So, and give me a bunch of ones if you understand that concept, by the way.
Extortion.
Now, yeah, police officers have a broad mandate to keep the peace, including intervening to stop other people from infringing upon other people's property interests. And that's generally what they're really there for, guys, to protect the commerce within the city, protect businesses, the tax base. Right there. That's really what they're for. And everything else originally, you're supposed to just regulate yourself. Now, the only real difference between the police and a judge is incarceration power. Police only have limited incarceration power. Basically, they have enough incarceration power to bring you before the real magistrate, the judge, or trial court, traffic court, whoever that might be. A court has the power to fine levies and penalties based upon the facts presented by the traffic magistrate surrounding the investigative stop. Officers have broad discretion to let you off with a warning or throw the book at you. Police officers play many important public functions as watchmen, patrolling, and legalistic, depending on how local governments deploy them. Police forces also bring in significant revenue, fines, criminal penalties, court assessments, and fees. And this helps with their pensions and political aspirations. And this is why I have a problem with police forces, is they become tools of the politicians. The police unions donate tons of money to their favorite political party. And it's with every teachers union. It's all the same. These unions, they become political tools using our tax dollars to destroy us, to give these people pensions as they race to the bottom and take away our rights. And a lot of people feel the same way. Now, historically, police, including sheriffs at common law, have never really had a duty to protect an individual against attackers. However, they could set up posses and arrest highwaymen and lawbreakers for committing criminal acts. So it's really the people who they represent. If the sheriff has people like me and BZ Watchdog,
from desktop VFSG.
Sorry, that was.
Yeah, it's okay. If it's like me and BZ and the sheriff's our sheriff, he's probably going to say deputize us right away, because he knows that we're going to want him to be a sheriff of action, or he's not going to get reelected. Maybe he might even get tarred and feathered. Now, whose public safety interests, if any, do the police serve? Unless an exception applies, not yours. Not yours. Municipal, county, state, and federal police remain a civilian force of public servants paid for by your tax dollars. Courts have repeatedly said and ruled that their only duty is to serve the party's public safety interest that employs them. And the party that employs them is the government agency. It's not to protect the taxpayers' public safety interests. It's to protect the government's public safety interests. They get to decide what public safety is, not you as the taxpayer. They decide. Police have zero constitutional duty to protect you. Police don't work for you. Many of you older folks remember those riots again, and where there was widespread looting and assaults, and rioters are free to attack you. You're absolutely right. Your only legal remedy is to obtain a weapon to defend yourself and pray that somebody doesn't accuse you of being racist for trying to protect your family, because that's usually how it goes down, unfortunately. But the U.S. Supreme Court has affirmed in the Winnebago case, Castle Rock, and these other cases, 100 small business owners tried to sue insurance companies for failing to pay because business interruption, but it was declared to be like a, public, because it was considered a riot zone or whatever. I guess insurance coverage doesn't apply when it's declared a disaster area. So these people, yeah, right. It's ridiculous that, so they couldn't get insurance. And most of these people, sued because they said that the fire was caused by inadequate police protection, and therefore they said that their insurance was triggered by that, right? So like somebody rear ends you and you're in a car. Well, your insurance policy says you're covered for that event, but insurance company said no. There's no reasonable expectation that the police are going to protect you. The courts have already decided that they won't. So even if it's not excluded in the policy, it doesn't matter. As a matter of public policy, police have no duty to protect you. And therefore our duty to trigger insurance, our duty to ensure this event is not triggered, because your argument that the fires were caused by inadequate police protection are irrelevant, because they don't have any duty to protect your crap, guys. So as long as the police impartially enforce laws, they owe you nothing. And that's true. So as long as the police don't try to give favors to one segment of society over the other, in other words, if like the Marine Corps, they treat you all equally like shit. What do they say that, Basil? I hate you all equally or something?
Something like that. It's like, I'm not racist. I just hate all of you equally.
Yeah. Okay.
Or I'm not going to discriminate against you guys. I hate all you equally. Something like that. But
yeah,
you're on the right path.
Okay. So can any lawsuits prevail if you want to sue a cop for failing to protect you? And yes, some lawsuits can. They can even claim up to sovereign immunity. Typically it's qualified immunity, but sometimes they can argue sovereign immunity in certain cases. But sometimes you can sue under the due process clause, but mere negligent conduct won't be enough. Typically it would have to be that the police disparately denied you police protection while not denying protection to others. And I think I just explained that to you. And then I sort of, in this article, which I put in the description of the video, I go into government tort immunity when you just can't sue them. I go into the common law notion that absent a statutory duty, a municipal corporation can't be held liable for failing to protect you. And then I go into how to defeat sovereign immunity when the police fail to protect you. And can I successfully sue police cloaked with immunity for failing to protect me? And one of the best ways is to prove that you're a disfavored minority, and that's almost impossible to do. And I just want you to go through and read like some of the stuff that I talk about when it comes to disfavored minorities. Now, a prisoner can sue if they were mistreated, and they can prove it. So those are usually the only cases that really have any value, from a lawyer standpoint, where you're actually going to be able to get your client any money. And I've negotiated some of those cases before, and I'll tell you, going to jail sucks, guys. And then denying a person in jail medical treatment. You put it in the sidebar, guys. Be interactive with me. If you can think of any times when you think the police owe you a duty, and I'll tell you if I think that they do. And then put in any examples of cases you've had where you've heard similar situations come up. And now you can also check to see if the state has knowledge of special dangers. Now, if the state places someone in a particular danger, where they purposefully bring danger to you, like, they let a guy out of his handcuffs they know is a crazy killer to go after you. I mean, obviously they're going to have a special relationship. The state and the victim are going to have a special relationship there. So we can talk about when, that, and we can talk about when police officer discretion to protect someone isn't absolute, and that's all in here. And no duty, no right to protection. That's right. And we saw that with the BLM riots, where they were pulling people out of their cars and beating them up because they were the wrong skin color and whatnot and blocking freeways. Nothing happened to those people. The police have discretion to pretty much do whatever they want, guys. And so here's the thing I want to talk about. Now, a lot of people are, well, what about that whole thing? The police, when the police put on the side of their car, hey, protect and serve, doesn't that imply a duty that I could sue them for? Well, the courts have actually ruled no, but there were some lawsuits that happened. And as a result, some police departments did remove the to protect and serve, and now they just have to protect. But hopefully you guys will see that I really did my research on this. I really, really did. I made sure to cover everything I could think of that would give the police department a duty to act. And I hope that you appreciate that. And really quick, I'm just going to look in the sidebar here and see if anything is interesting. I didn't hear any super chat, so I'm assuming that we don't have a lot of people in here today.
We only have about 45 people in here.
All right. So Brick Jonesy says he's got some cases for us. I'd like to see them. And then, yeah, joshing you, absolutely. I'm a single white male, the most disfavored minority. Well, there's good news today. In a 9-0 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court, I believe it happened today, found that all these DEI initiatives and discriminating against white people just because they're white, because it supposedly helps other races, is unconstitutional. They said you can't discriminate against people just because you feel discriminated against. So back to the drawing board, all those reverse racists and DEI people who treat other people badly and think that they have a pass to do it because of skin color. I think all that stuff needs to go. We need to just treat each other as Americans and throw all that garbage out the window. It doesn't do any of us any good. Give me a bunch of ones if you think we should all unite as Americans, just love one another and defeat the great Leviathan and get Chile out of jail, right? Give me a bunch of ones. What do you think, Basil?
I believe I'm right there with you. A bunch of ones. Look, I've got
a bunch of ones, man.
Bunch of ones.
All right. So,
I always put my ones in there.
So in the past, we saw that a lot of police cars had these slogans, protect and serve.
Bullshit, lies.
But it's just gossip that they have to protect you just because they put that on your car. There's nothing I could find, guys. If Brick Jonesy or someone's got something, check it out. I'm always looking for editors too. Like if somebody can prove to me they're a good editor, I invite them to come and co-author things on my blog and websites, because the stuff that I do some of my articles take me 2 or 3 days to put together. I do a lot of research, and I've gotten a lot of cases just because people are like, no other lawyer explained it to me that way. And they just appreciated that I took the time, and I've gotten cases that way. So that's one of the ways I do it, guys. So the modern systemic police racism thing. Okay. So the problem is, there's a big argument that all police are racist, but most of the so-called racist cops are in all black run cities with all black run police departments. And so now a lot of people are going, this has nothing to do with systemic racism. This has to do with these bullshit laws that politicians pass to raise taxes, just like under the British. Like, remember, our revolution was fought because the king was trying to raise taxes to pay for all of his endless wars and all of his social engineering stuff. Sound familiar? That's why they don't teach you that in school. They say, well, taxes were raised. Why were the taxes raised? So think about that. You've got these officers out there strangling people to death over selling loose cigarettes because the cigarette tax in New York is so outrageous that bums can go across into New Jersey and not have to pay a cigarette tax and stand in front of a cigarette store in New York. The New York shopkeepers who pay the taxes don't like it. Now you've got the New York police showing up and strangling people like Eric Garner to death. I can't breathe. Don't listen to the media narrative. This is not systemic racism. This is politicians using their private security force, the municipal police, as scapegoats. And yeah, of course you're going to have bad cops because they're being told that they can violate your rights. Don't worry, you're still going to get your pension. That's going to attract animals and scumbags, of course, who are going to violate your rights. And now they're making people law enforcement officers who aren't even U.S. citizens, illegal aliens. Do you think they're going to give a rat's ass about your rights when you're being forced to pay for their paycheck? You got to be smoking crack if you believe that. So just really quick, just go in here really quick about New York and the Eric Garner case and about how selling single cigarettes from packs without tax stamps, that's what got him killed. He violated New York's tax law. That's not the for-profit media narrative, right? Nobody wants to see that kind of a show on MSNBC or CNN, The Truth. They just want to hear about how bad the cops are and how racist they are. But look at that stupid cigarette tax law and how that got this poor guy killed. What a joke. Now, let's just get in here. So there's alternatives to law enforcement and peace officers. You know, you can hire professional security to come into your area and provide protection and with alarms and video monitoring. And that's what a lot of people are doing in LA and Beverly Hills. The wealthy people there are just hiring their own private security. They're not relying on the government. They're not stupid. Come on. They see what's going on. They can watch TV. You can look at shopping malls and all these massive attacks and beatings and people getting carjacked. Crime at an all-time high. You have California lowering the penalties for felonies to make it look like there's less felonies because there's so many felonies. They have to lower the penalty. It's a joke. So anyways, BZ, you got anything you got to say about any of this stuff? Does anybody have any questions about this?
I mean, I don't. I mean, I believe this is stuff that most of us pretty much already knew. And if you didn't, soak it up. Just know for your next police encounter.
Yeah. And then BZ and I will try to come up with a different topic for tomorrow night. Keep in mind, I am working on a show about the dumbing down of the legal education system and how California is leading the way to allow people to not take a bar exam and how that's going to really hurt you guys as consumers and how it's going to lead to a lot of fraud. It's going to lead to even less trust in our already very untrusted government. And so I'm going to be doing that. And then everybody give me a bunch of ones if you like the show. Make sure to like and subscribe and make sure to save. Make sure to add BZ Watchdog. And then Let's OTVO, if you're still out there, come up with a show idea of something you want to discuss, and I'll have you come on and something you have expertise in, because I'd love to have you back on. I'm just trying to have panelists on who have a certain area of expertise in a topic that I'm talking about, and not too many, because when I have even more than two, I start having connectivity problems, and then I'll disappear off my screen and I'll have like timeouts. So it just becomes problematic. But yeah, thanks for the ones, BZ and Jay Curvette. Thanks, Jim Forbes, for coming out. Thanks, Avilia. And then everybody make sure to read that article that I just did, and then throw some ideas for different topics you'd like me to talk about in the future. And then unless you have anything else to say, BZ, I'm going to go ahead and close this out.
Man, I got nothing for tonight, man. It's been a long day.
All right, brother. So make sure, as always, everybody, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save this with your friends and family. We got to get up to at least 7,000 subscribers. Make sure to check out my other video from a couple of days ago for the GoFundMe link for Chili's donations, and put it in the sidebar if you have Chili's GoFundMe link.
I got it.
Right in there for the people before we log off. And on Wednesday, I plan on seeing Chili and giving you an update about what's going on, maybe later in the day. And in the meantime, so make sure to like and subscribe, make sure to save, and make sure to save it to your computer. Make sure to send it to Twitter. Make sure to send it to TikTok, wherever you can send it, where you're allowed to send it. Share it with your friends, Reddit, friends, family member. Make sure to always like and subscribe, because the more people that subscribe and share, the higher up they go in, the Google recommended videos. And I want people to see this stuff, because nobody's talking about this. Nobody really understands their rights or why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think every single one of you should be taking physical fitness, self-defense courses, learning about the Bill of Rights, learning about natural law, and wondering in amazement how we got to this point where people don't even know how to read cursive anymore, and how ridiculous that is. So with that being said, like and subscribe, save, and I'm out of here. Semper Fi, do or die.